I'm Isabella Chen, 36, the founder of Summit Analytics. After years of building my data science company from the ground up, I was thrilled to be invited to my sister Emma's corporate gala. Despite our complicated relationship, I hoped this would finally be my chance to gain the respect I'd earned. Little did I know that my $45 million AI contract with her husband's tech empire would become the center of a family explosion when I discovered where they expected me to network. What would you do if your own family treated you like an embarrassment? I was about to show them exactly how valuable I really was. Before I dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. Hit that like button, and if you're new here, subscribe to hear more stories about claiming your power when it matters most. Now, let me take you back to how this all began. Growing up in Palo Alto, California, Emma and I were actually inseparable as children. Only 18 months apart, we spent summers coding together in our garage and winters competing in robotics competitions. Our mother, Dr. Linda Chen, would pack us identical lunches with encouraging notes, and our father, Professor David Chen, taught us both advanced mathematics during our weekend family sessions. Those early memories were warm, collaborative, intellectually stimulating. The shift began gradually when we entered Stanford together. Emma chose business administration, following the path our parents had always praised as practical and prestigious. I gravitated toward computer science and artificial intelligence research. Our parents attended every one of Emma's business case competitions, networking with other parents and professors in the faculty lounge. My research presentations and coding marathons. They'd usually have a faculty meeting or arrive late, missing my breakthroughs entirely. Business builds empires, my father would say while reviewing Emma's marketing projects. All that technical stuff is just the back end, Isabella. You'll need to learn the business side eventually. I didn't learn the business side, I revolutionized it. Instead, I earned a PhD in machine learning, while Emma completed her MBA with average grades but excellent networking skills. During family holiday gatherings, conversations revolved around Emma's internships at Fortune 500 companies and her connections with venture capitalists. My academic publications and breakthrough algorithms were acknowledged with polite nods before someone changed the subject to something everyone could understand. After graduation, I worked 100-hour weeks at a struggling AI startup in San Francisco, learning everything I could about turning cutting-edge research into practical solutions. Meanwhile, Emma joined Chen Consulting, the management firm my mother had built from her psychology practice. Emma was immediately given a senior associate position, despite having no real-world experience beyond her MBA case studies. It's about emotional intelligence, not just raw intellect, my mother explained when I questioned the fairness during a rare Sunday dinner visit. Emma understands how to work with people, how to build relationships. That's what drives real success. At 29, I took the biggest risk of my life. I liquidated my stock options, secured a substantial research grant, and founded Summit Analytics. The first 18 months were grueling. I converted my studio apartment into a development lab, sleeping on an air mattress between my servers. Instant ramen and energy drinks became my primary sustenance as I poured every resource into developing proprietary AI algorithms that could predict market trends with unprecedented accuracy. When I called home during that period, conversations were brief and discouraging. "I'm concerned about you, honey," my mother would say. "There's always a position at the consulting firm if this tech experiment doesn't work out." They never offered to invest, never asked about my breakthrough research, never seemed to believe I could succeed in such a male-dominated, oversaturated field. Then came the breakthrough that changed everything. Summit Analytics developed a revolutionary predictive AI system that could analyze massive datasets and forecast market movements with 94% accuracy. Suddenly, hedge funds were calling. Tech giants were scheduling meetings, and investors who had previously dismissed my emails were begging for demonstrations. It was during this meteoric rise that Emma met Jonathan Pierce at a tech industry mixer. Jonathan was the youngest son of Margaret Pierce, the founder of Pierce Technologies, a multinational software conglomerate worth over $8 billion. Their relationship progressed rapidly, with elaborate dinner parties in Napa Valley and private jet trips to technology conferences worldwide. My parents were absolutely ecstatic. Margaret has taken quite an interest in Emma. My mother gushed during one of our monthly check-ins. She's introducing her to all the industry leaders. This connection could really elevate our family's profile in the tech world. The irony was devastating. While my own technological innovations were treated as a curious hobby, Emma's relationship was celebrated as a strategic career move that would benefit the entire family's reputation. 8 months into their relationship, Emma and Jonathan announced their engagement at a lavish party in Margaret Pierce's Marin County estate. The Pierce and Chen families merged their professional networks, with my parents suddenly attending exclusive tech summits and innovation galas they'd previously dismissed as too technical and boring. Meanwhile, through completely independent channels, Pierce Technologies had been desperately searching for advanced AI solutions to optimize their global operations and stay competitive with emerging tech rivals. Their chief technology officer, Dr. Rachel Steinberg, discovered Summit Analytics through a research paper I'd published in the Journal of Machine Learning. She had absolutely no idea about the family connection when her team reached out to schedule a consultation. After 6 months of rigorous testing, security audits, technical demonstrations, and complex negotiations, Pierce Technologies signed a $45 million exclusive contract with Summit Analytics. It was the largest deal in my company's history, one that would allow us to expand internationally, hire top-tier talent, and develop next-generation AI applications that could reshape entire industries. I mentioned the contract to my parents during our weekly video call, hoping they might finally acknowledge the magnitude of my success. "That's wonderful, dear," my mother said distractedly. "Did you receive the invitation to Emma and Jonathan's engagement celebration?" "It's at the Pierce family compound. Margaret has her own helipad on the property for guest convenience." 2 weeks later, at the engagement party, I met Margaret Pierce for the first time. She was tall, impeccably dressed in designer attire, with silver hair styled perfectly, and the confident presence of someone accustomed to being the most powerful person in any room. "So, you're the brilliant mind behind Summit Analytics," she said, shaking my hand with surprising firmness. "Dr. Steinberg says your AI system is revolutionary. Your predictive models are already saving us millions in operational costs, and we've only been using the system for 3 months." "Thank you, Mrs. Pierce. We're excited about the long-term partnership possibilities. Please call me Margaret, and we absolutely must arrange a proper dinner soon. I'd love to discuss where you see artificial intelligence heading in the next decade, especially in enterprise applications." Before I could respond, my mother appeared at my side, eyes wide with confusion and surprise. "You two have met?" she asked, looking between us uncertainly. "Just now," I replied. "Margaret was kind enough to compliment our AI platform." "Your platform?" Margaret's eyebrows rose with genuine surprise. "Which one?" "You're Emma's sister." Jonathan never mentioned his fiancée's sister was the founder of Summit Analytics. An uncomfortable silence followed, heavy with unspoken implications. My mother laughed nervously, as if explaining away an embarrassing family secret. "Oh, Isabella has always been our little tech genius," she said dismissively, as if describing a child's quirky hobby rather than a groundbreaking business. "Emma focuses more on the strategic business development side of things, like her mother." Margaret looked confused but quickly recovered her professional composure. "Well, apparently genius runs in the family, just in different but complementary directions. This is quite a remarkable coincidence." It wasn't a coincidence that my sister had never mentioned my company to her future mother-in-law. It was a deliberate omission, a calculated erasure of my achievements. My success didn't fit the narrative Emma had created about herself as the family's business prodigy, the one carrying forward our parents' legacy of strategic thinking and relationship building. Despite this painful revelation, I held on to hope that Emma's engagement gala might be a turning point. Perhaps the undeniable evidence of my success through the Pierce contract would finally earn me the recognition and respect I'd worked tirelessly to achieve. I spent weeks selecting the perfect outfit, a sophisticated charcoal gray suit that projected both innovation and authority. I even arranged for Daniel Kim, a respected tech journalist and entrepreneur I'd been dating for 4 months, to accompany me as my +1. "Are you absolutely sure you want me there?" Daniel asked over dinner the week before the gala. From everything you've shared about your family dynamics, it sounds like it might be emotionally challenging. That's exactly why I need you there, I admitted openly. Having someone who truly sees and appreciates what I've built will help me maintain perspective and confidence. The night before the gala, I called Emma, wanting to connect sister to sister before the chaos and formality of the corporate event. Hey, just wanted to say I'm really excited for tomorrow and happy for you, I said when she answered, hoping to bridge the growing distance between us. Thanks, Izzy, she replied, sounding distracted and slightly stressed. It's absolutely crazy here. Margaret keeps adding high-profile attendees to the guest list, and the event planner is scrambling to accommodate everyone. Is there anything I can help with? I could arrive early if you need extra support. No, we've got everything under control. A pause filled with uncharacteristic tension. Listen, about the networking arrangements. Yes. Nothing. Just, we've had to make some last-minute adjustments with all the VIP additions, but it's all handled now. See you tomorrow. As I hung up, I felt a twinge of unease settling in my stomach, but I pushed it aside determinedly. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow, finally, my family would see me for who I truly was. The Pierce family compound sprawled across 50 acres of manicured landscape with breathtaking views of San Francisco Bay. A valet service managed the arriving vehicles, a collection of Teslas, Bentleys, and other luxury cars that represented the tech industry's elite. Daniel whistled appreciatively as we approached in my Model S. You didn't mention this was going to be quite so extravagant, he said, adjusting his designer tie. I honestly didn't know. I admitted, feeling slightly overwhelmed. This is my first time at the Pierce estate too. A uniformed valet opened my door with practiced professionalism. Welcome to the Pierce Chen engagement celebration, ma'am. The main house was a stunning example of modern architecture with floor-to-ceiling windows, clean lines, and sustainable materials that showcased both wealth and environmental consciousness. A chamber ensemble played classical music near an infinity pool, where guests in formal attire mingled with champagne and craft cocktails. White orchids and sustainable greenery adorned every surface, their subtle fragrance mixing with the salt air from the nearby bay. Isabella. My mother's voice carried across the outdoor space. She approached wearing an elegant navy dress that she'd mentioned purchasing specifically for this occasion during multiple phone conversations. You're here. And who is this? Mom. This is Daniel Kim. Daniel, my mother, Dr. Linda Chen. Daniel extended his hand with genuine warmth. Pleasure to meet you, Dr. Chen. You have a remarkable family. Thank you, she replied, her eyes quickly assessing him before turning back to me with barely concealed excitement. Isabella, your father is by the networking lounge with Margaret and some of the industry leaders. You should come say hello immediately. She didn't wait for a response before turning and expecting us to follow without question. She seems enthusiastic, Daniel whispered, his tone gently teasing. Just wait. I murmured back, steeling myself for what was to come. My father stood in a circle of distinguished men and women in expensive suits, all laughing at something Margaret Pierce had just said. When he spotted me, his smile faltered for just a moment before recovering his composure. There's my daughter, he said, giving me a quick, somewhat stiff embrace. And who's this young man? After introducing Daniel again, I turned to Margaret Pierce, who greeted me with considerably more enthusiasm and genuine interest than my own father had shown. Isabella, the woman of the hour. I was just telling these industry leaders about how your AI system is revolutionizing our predictive capabilities. 4 months in, and we're already seeing unprecedented results that are reshaping our entire strategic planning process. The executives in the circle regarded me with newfound interest and respect. You're behind the Summit Analytics platform? Asked a distinguished woman with a slight accent. Pierce hasn't stopped talking about it. Says it's saving them a fortune in predictive modeling alone and giving them competitive advantages they never thought possible. Before I could respond professionally, my father cleared his throat loudly. Well, Isabella always did have a knack for computers and technical things. Emma's the one who introduced her to Margaret, didn't you know? Always looking out for her little sister's career development. The lie hung in the air between us like a toxic cloud. Margaret Pierce's eyebrows rose slightly with confusion. But she said nothing to contradict my father, probably out of politeness and social decorum. Actually, I began, but was interrupted by the dramatic appearance of the guest of honor herself. Emma Chen floated toward us in a cloud of designer silk, her black hair arranged in an elaborate chignon adorned with subtle diamond accessories that caught the evening light. "Isabella, you actually came," she exclaimed, kissing both my cheeks with practiced social grace. "And in charcoal gray, how very practical and understated." Her gaze flicked over my carefully chosen suit with the barest hint of a condescending smile, as if I had failed some unspoken dress code. Though I thought I mentioned the tech leaders were wearing lighter colors for the photo opportunities with the tech press. "You didn't receive that memo, did you? You didn't actually send any specific dress code," I replied evenly, maintaining my composure. "But congratulations, Emma. Everything looks absolutely stunning, doesn't it?" Margaret spared no expense. She beamed, linking her arm possessively through Margaret's. "Jonathan's getting ready with the other Pierce family members. The formal presentations start in 30 minutes. Her eyes landed on Daniel with unexpected interest and calculation. And who might this distinguished gentleman be? After introductions, Emma's demeanor warmed noticeably toward Daniel. "Daniel Kim of TechCrunch. Why, Margaret's mentioned your publication before. You really must join us at the VIP networking area for the evening. The main influencers and decision makers will be there." Daniel's hand found the small of my back protectively. "Thank you, but I'll be staying with Isabella throughout the evening." Of course. Of course. Emma's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Speaking of which, I should check with the event coordinator about the final networking arrangements. So many last-minute changes and additions to accommodate." As she glided away with practiced grace, Daniel leaned close to my ear. "Is it my imagination? Or did the temperature just drop about 20 degrees? The formal presentations were elaborate but felt impersonal, with celebrity speakers, industry panels, and announcements that sounded like they'd been crafted by a high-end PR firm. Emma looked stunning but nervous as she spoke about synergizing family values with corporate innovation, her eyes rarely meeting the audience during her carefully rehearsed remarks. Afterward, guests were directed to different networking zones throughout the compound for the evening's main event. Digital displays and elegant signage directed attendees to various themed areas based on their industry focus and networking goals. "Let's find our designated networking area," I suggested to Daniel, scanning the compound for directional information. A professional-looking event coordinator with a tablet approached us near the main entrance. When I gave her my name, she frowned and scrolled through her digital list several times, her expression growing increasingly uncomfortable. Isabella Chen, that's odd. Let me check another category list." A sense of foreboding crept up my spine as she continued searching through multiple databases, her professional composure beginning to crack. "Here we are. Isabella Chen +1. You're assigned to Area C." Her professional mask slipped for just a moment, revealing genuine discomfort and what looked like embarrassment. "Is there a problem?" Daniel asked, sensing the tension in the interaction. No problem at all. Just a moment, please." She hurried away, disappearing into the crowd of networking guests. 5 uncomfortable minutes later, she returned with an older woman who introduced herself as the senior event manager, her expression carefully neutral but strained. "Miss Chen, there seems to have been an oversight with the networking area assignments," she explained in a diplomatically low voice. "The main VIP networking zones are all at capacity now. I RSVP'd 6 weeks ago," I replied firmly. "And I'm the guest of honor's sister." The senior manager nodded apologetically, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. "Yes, we understand completely. We've arranged alternative networking accommodations for you and your guest." "Alternative accommodations," Daniel repeated, his voice taking on a sharp edge. "If you'll follow me, please." Rather than leading us to any of the elegant networking areas visible throughout the main compound, she guided us through a side entrance and down a service hallway. The sounds of conversation and networking grew more distant with each step we took. Finally, she opened a door to reveal what appeared to be a break room for catering staff, where uniformed workers in black and white were taking their meal breaks. In the corner stood a small table with 2 chairs, hastily covered with a white tablecloth that didn't quite fit properly. You cannot be serious, I said, feeling heat and humiliation rise to my face. I do sincerely apologize for this inconvenience. The manager replied, unable to meet my eyes directly. The guest of honor made some very last-minute changes to accommodate important industry partners and investors. I am an industry partner, I pointed out firmly. Pierce Technologies just signed a $45 million exclusive contract with my company. The manager looked genuinely confused and surprised. I wasn't informed of that particular detail. I'm just following the specific instructions I was given this morning. Before she could continue her explanation, Emma appeared in the doorway, a champagne flute in her hand, and her eyes gleaming with what looked like barely concealed satisfaction as she surveyed the humiliating scene. Is there some kind of problem here? She asked, her voice artificially sweet and concerned. Yes, there's definitely a problem, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady and professional. You've assigned me and my guest to eat with the catering staff. I'm your sister. Emma took a slow, deliberate sip of her champagne before responding, as if considering her words carefully. We had to prioritize Isabella. Margaret's industry associates and our close family friends needed the premium networking opportunities. I'm sure you understand the business realities. Actually, I don't understand, I countered firmly. And I think Jonathan would be upset to know you've relegated his future sister-in-law to the staff break room. Something cold and calculating flashed in Emma's eyes. Jonathan approved the networking assignments this morning. He knows exactly where everyone is positioned for maximum networking efficiency. The betrayal hit like a physical blow to my chest. My own sister and her fiancé had deliberately orchestrated this humiliation. This is completely inappropriate and unprofessional, Daniel said firmly, his journalist instincts kicking in. We'll be joining the main networking areas. Emma's perfect social mask slipped for just a moment, revealing the contempt and jealousy beneath. The help networks in the break room, she sneered, gesturing dismissively toward the catering staff. You should feel right at home considering your humble beginnings in that garage. The senior event manager looked mortified, backing away from the confrontation. Several catering staff members paused in their break, awkwardly pretending not to listen to the family drama unfolding before them. In that moment, something inside me crystallized with perfect clarity. Decades of being overshadowed, dismissed, and now openly disrespected had reached a breaking point. I wouldn't cause a scene. I wouldn't lower myself to Emma's level of petty cruelty, but I would no longer accept being treated as less than I was worth. Daniel, I said quietly, my voice steady with newfound resolve. I need a moment alone to make some phone calls. Would you mind waiting for me outside? He squeezed my hand in understanding and support. Take all the time you need. I'll be right outside whenever you're ready. After they left, I stood alone in the bustling break room, invisible to my own family, despite being responsible for a multi-million-dollar contract that would significantly benefit the very people who couldn't bother to give me proper networking access. I knew exactly what I needed to do, and for the first time in years, I felt completely certain about my decision. The women's restroom off the main hallway was empty, thankfully providing the privacy I needed. I locked myself in a stall, leaned against the door, and finally allowed the tears of humiliation and disappointment to fall freely. I covered my mouth to muffle the sound, not wanting anyone who might enter to hear me breaking down emotionally. How had I deluded myself into believing this gala would be different, that my unprecedented success would finally earn me a place of respect in my own family? The pattern was so devastatingly clear now, stretching back through the years like a roadmap of dismissal and systematic favoritism that had shaped my entire life. I remembered my 21st birthday when my parents forgot because Emma had a final presentation for her business strategy class. They'd hastily bought a grocery store cake 3 days later, the frosting already stale, as they explained how proud they were of Emma's presentation grades. Then there was my PhD graduation from Stanford, where I defended my dissertation on revolutionary machine learning algorithms. My parents arrived 2 hours late, missing my entire defense. Because Emma's consulting internship had an important client breakfast they absolutely couldn't miss. They brought her along to my celebration dinner, where she dominated the conversation with stories about her summer project managing social media campaigns. and the day I signed the lease on my first real office space for Summit Analytics. Complete with a dedicated server room and research lab, I'd called home bursting with pride and excitement. Only to be told they couldn't talk long, because they were hosting a networking event to celebrate Emma's promotion to senior associate at Chen Consulting, a title that had been created specifically for her without any real qualifications. Even today, on what should have been a celebration of family and professional success, I was literally being hidden away, deemed unworthy of networking with important people, despite my own groundbreaking achievements in artificial intelligence. A gentle knock on the bathroom door startled me out of my painful reflection. "Isabella, it's Daniel. Are you okay in there?" I wiped my eyes carefully, took several deep breaths to compose myself, and opened the door. Daniel stood there with genuine concern etched across his features, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "Thought you might need this," he said, offering me a glass with a supportive smile. I accepted it gratefully, taking a long sip to steady my nerves. "I'm sorry you're witnessing this family dysfunction firsthand." He leaned against the wall beside me, his presence comforting and supportive. "Don't apologize for their behavior. If anything, I'm getting a very illuminating look at what you've been dealing with your entire life, and it's making me understand your strength even more. And yet, I still came tonight, still hoping for, I don't even know what anymore. Acceptance, recognition, the basic respect any person reserves from their family," Daniel suggested gently. "Those aren't unreasonable things to want, Isabella." I sipped my champagne thoughtfully, considering his words and my next move. "The thing is, I don't actually need their approval anymore. I built Summit Analytics without their support or encouragement. I have a team that respects my vision, clients who value what I've created, and friends who see me for who I really am." I glanced at him meaningfully. "I have you?" "You certainly do," he confirmed with a warm, genuine smile. "So what do you want to do? We can leave right now. Get dinner somewhere with actual professional networking. Maybe catch that new tech documentary. Pretend this whole gala disaster never happened." My phone buzzed in my clutch. I pulled it out to see Dr. Rachel Steinberg's name on the screen, the CTO from Pierce Technologies. "I should take this," I said, straightening my shoulders. "It's the Chief Technology Officer from Pierce Technologies." Daniel nodded and stepped away respectfully to give me privacy for the important business call. "Dr. Steinberg, is everything all right?" I answered professionally. "Everything's perfect, Isabella. Just wanted to confirm our strategy meeting next week about the Phase 3 implementation expansion, and to let you know, the second quarterly payment for the contract was processed this afternoon. $45 million. Right on schedule as contracted." As Rachel continued discussing technical details and future possibilities, a realization dawned on me with crystal clarity. I wasn't powerless in this situation. I had built something genuinely valuable, something that even Margaret Pierce couldn't dismiss or minimize. And while I couldn't change how my family perceived me, I could absolutely change how I responded to their treatment and disrespect. "Rachel, can I call you back in about 30 minutes? I'm actually at the Pierce Chen engagement celebration right now." "Oh, I didn't realize you were attending." "Of course, enjoy the networking opportunities. We can discuss everything in detail on Monday." After hanging up, I turned to find Daniel watching me with curiosity and growing understanding. "What are you thinking?" he asked, recognizing the shift in my demeanor and energy. "I'm thinking that I've spent my entire adult life hoping my family would recognize my worth and value," I replied, surprising myself with how calm and centered I felt. "But maybe it's time I recognized it myself and acted accordingly." "What does that mean exactly?" Daniel asked, though his expression suggested he was beginning to understand. I smoothed my suit jacket and checked my reflection in the mirror, wiping away the last traces of tears and doubt. "It means I'm not going to hide in a break room like I'm ashamed of what I've accomplished. It means I'm going to walk back into that networking event with my head held high. And it means I'm going to make a business decision based on how I've been treated tonight, not on family obligation or sentimentality." Daniel's eyes widened slightly as full understanding dawned. "The Pierce contract. Exactly. Margaret Pierce wants the benefits of my cutting-edge AI technology, but her future daughter-in-law and my sister think I'm only worthy of networking with catering staff. That's not a business relationship I want to maintain long term. Are you absolutely sure about this? It's a $45 million exclusive contract with massive growth potential. I took a deep breath, calculating exactly what this decision would mean for Summit Analytics and my future. Yes, the Pierce contract was significant and prestigious, but it wasn't our only major client. We had diversified successfully over the past 18 months. Losing the contract would be challenging, but it wouldn't devastate us. And the message it would send about my self-worth was invaluable. I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied with conviction. I deserve better than this treatment, both personally and professionally. And it's time everyone understood that fundamental truth. Daniel smiled slowly, then stepped closer supportively. Then I'm with you completely. Whatever you decide to do. We walked back toward the networking areas together, my mind clear and my purpose defined with laser focus. For the first time that evening, I felt a profound sense of peace and empowerment. Not because I was about to retaliate or seek revenge, but because I was finally valuing myself enough to establish firm boundaries, even with family members. Just outside the main networking tent, I paused, watching through the opening as Emma and Jonathan moved from group to group, schmoozing with guests. They stopped at the VIP area, where Margaret Pierce sat with several distinguished-looking executives in expensive suits, all laughing and raising glasses in elaborate toasts. That's where I should be networking, I said quietly to Daniel. Not because I'm Emma's sister, but because I'm the CEO of a company that Pierce Technologies desperately needs for their competitive advantage. Then let's make sure they understand exactly who they decided to put in the break room, Daniel replied, offering me his arm with determination. With my head held high and my decision made, I stepped back into the networking area, no longer seeking approval or validation, but ready to command the respect I'd earned through my own merit and achievements. The networking event was in full swing when Daniel and I re-entered the main area. A jazz ensemble played from a raised platform while servers circulated with gourmet appetizers and premium cocktails. Crystal and technology displays gleamed under elegant lighting, and the buzz of important conversations mixed with occasional laughter from successful connections being made. No one seemed to notice our return, which was fitting given how they had tried to render me invisible in the first place. I scanned the area until I spotted exactly what I was looking for. The VIP networking zone, where Margaret Pierce sat with Emma and Jonathan, along with what appeared to be several key industry leaders and potential business partners. They're discussing the expansion into AI-driven market analysis, Daniel murmured, following my gaze with his journalist eye for detail. I recognize Sandra Martinez from Global Tech Ventures. If they're bringing her in, Pierce must be planning a major technological advancement initiative. That explained the important industry partners, who had taken priority over family members. Margaret was using her son's engagement celebration as a high-level business opportunity, and Emma was playing along perfectly, probably hoping to benefit from the corporate connections and establish herself as a serious business player. Perfect timing, I replied, straightening my shoulders with newfound confidence. Shall we make our entrance? We made our way across the networking area, pausing occasionally as guests I didn't recognize complimented me on the elegant event and my sister's successful engagement. Each time, I thanked them politely but professionally before continuing toward the VIP area with determination. As we approached, I could hear Margaret mid-presentation, combining our technological resources with Chen Consulting's strategic frameworks, while maintaining Pierce's focus on innovation and market disruption. Emma here will oversee the integration process. With the new AI system we've implemented, we expect to increase predictive accuracy by at least 30% in the first year alone. Emma nodded eagerly, clearly pleased to be presented as a key player in this high-level business discussion. Jonathan sat beside her, one hand possessively on her arm, while he surveyed the networking area with the satisfied look of someone who had everything arranged exactly as he wanted for maximum advantage. They didn't notice me until I was standing directly beside their exclusive networking table. Margaret saw me first, her expression shifting rapidly from surprise to discomfort to professional concern. "Isabella," she said, straightening in her chair with visible tension. "We were just discussing business strategy. Something about AI implementation that might interest you professionally. Yes, I heard. I replied calmly, my voice carrying clearly across the immediate area. You were discussing the AI system my company created. The one your technology team specifically sought out because it's the most advanced predictive analytics platform in the industry. Emma's confident smile faltered as she looked between Margaret and me with growing alarm. Izzy, maybe we can discuss technical details later. We're kind of in the middle of something important here. Yes, I can see that clearly. I replied with deliberate calm. Using your engagement celebration to negotiate business deals, while assigning your own sister to network in the staff break room. Very efficient use of your social connections. A hush fell over the immediate networking area. The business leaders at the table glanced at each other with visible discomfort, clearly recognizing the family drama unfolding before them. There was a misunderstanding with the networking assignments. Jonathan interjected quickly, his voice tight with damage control. These things happen at large corporate events. Do they? I asked pointedly. Funny how the misunderstanding resulted in the CEO of a company. You just paid $45 million to being assigned to network with catering staff, while business prospects got VIP treatment and exclusive access. Margaret Pierce's expression darkened with confusion and growing concern. $45 million. What exactly are you talking about, Isabella? Your company signed an exclusive contract with Summit Analytics 4 months ago. I'm the founder and CEO of Summit Analytics, the AI system you were just bragging about and building your expansion plans around. That's my creation. My proprietary technology. Margaret's face registered genuine shock as she turned to Emma with sharp disapproval. You never mentioned your sister was the head of Summit Analytics. Emma shifted uncomfortably, her confident facade cracking. It didn't seem relevant to tonight's networking goals. Not relevant. I echoed, my voice rising slightly with controlled indignation. You didn't think it was relevant that your sister's company was providing the foundational technology your future mother-in-law was investing tens of millions in. Now isn't the appropriate time for this discussion, Emma hissed, her perfect composure completely shattered. You're making a scene at our engagement celebration. I reached for my phone, my movements deliberate and professionally calm. You're absolutely right. This isn't a discussion. This is a business decision. I dialed a number from my contacts and held the phone to my ear, maintaining direct eye contact with Emma as it rang. Michael, it's Isabella Powell. I need you to cancel the $45 million exclusive contract with Pierce Technologies. Effective immediately. Emma's face went completely pale, her mouth opening and closing without any sound. Margaret Pierce rose from her chair, her expression a mixture of confusion and mounting anger. Isabella, what are you doing? She demanded urgently. I held up one finger, continuing my conversation loud enough for everyone at the VIP table to hear clearly. Yes, I understand the significant implications. No, this isn't a negotiating tactic or emotional decision. Please have our legal team prepare the termination paperwork immediately. I'll be in first thing Monday morning to sign everything and begin the transition process. Emma's composure shattered completely. You can't do that. Margaret just restructured her entire AI strategy around your system. I ended the call and slipped my phone back into my clutch with deliberate calm. I can and I have. Summit Analytics doesn't partner with companies that demonstrate such poor judgment and fundamental lack of professional courtesy. This is absolutely absurd. Margaret sputtered, her usual composure cracking. You're canceling a multi-million-dollar exclusive contract because of networking arrangements. No, Mrs. Pierce. I'm canceling it because these networking arrangements revealed the fundamental character of your organization and my family's perception of my value. If this is how you treat a CEO when you think she's just someone's sister, I have serious concerns about how you'll honor our partnership when larger challenges arise. The business leaders at the table were watching with keen professional interest now, clearly reassessing both me and the Pierce-Chen alliance. Sandra Martinez from Global Tech Ventures was taking notes on her phone, probably already seeing the story potential. Emma. Margaret turned to my sister, her voice dangerously low. Did you know about this? About who your sister is in relation to our company's AI infrastructure? Emma swallowed hard, her confident facade completely gone. I knew she had a tech startup, I didn't realize it was the same company you were working with for strategic planning. That's a lie, I said quietly but firmly. Becker. Steinberg mentioned our family connection to you 5 weeks ago, when she discovered it during a technical review meeting. She told me she spoke to you directly about the potential conflicts of interest. Emma's face confirmed the truth, before she could formulate another denial. Margaret's expression hardened as she realized she'd been deliberately kept in the dark about crucial business relationships. We need to discuss this immediately. Margaret stood abruptly, grabbing Emma's arm with visible tension. Somewhere private where we can address this properly. Jonathan rose as well, his face flushed with anger and embarrassment. You're ruining everything, he hissed at me. This networking event cost over $300,000, and you're turning it into a business dispute that could damage both our families' reputations. No, Jonathan, you ruined it when you decided I wasn't good enough to network with my own family and industry peers. I maintained my composure, refusing to match his emotional outburst. I simply decided I wasn't going to accept that treatment any longer, professionally or personally. As Margaret led Emma and Jonathan away, with several curious business leaders following to observe the drama, Daniel placed his hand supportively on the small of my back. That, he said quietly with admiration, was the most professionally executed power move I've ever witnessed in person. For the first time that evening, I felt a genuine smile spread across my face. Let's get out of here. I suddenly have a taste for real networking, preferably somewhere where I can sit at an actual table with people who respect innovation. As we turned to leave, several of the business associates from the VIP table approached me directly, business cards appearing from inside expensive suit jackets. Miss Chen. Sandra Martinez stepped forward confidently. Global Tech Ventures. I'd be very interested in learning more about what Summit Analytics has to offer, especially after that impressive display of business principles. Another executive stepped forward eagerly. David Park, Innovation Capital. I've been following your company's AI developments. Perhaps we could schedule a meeting next week to discuss investment opportunities. The very people Margaret and Emma had been courting were now approaching me directly, drawn by my demonstration of professional integrity. The irony wasn't lost on me, but I didn't feel any particular satisfaction from it. This wasn't about revenge or one-upmanship. It was about standing up for myself and my company's value in the marketplace. I accepted their cards politely but didn't linger to network. My assistant will be in touch to arrange meetings, but right now, I need to leave and process this evening's events. As Daniel and I walked toward the valet area, the sounds of raised voices could be heard coming from the direction Margaret had taken Emma and Jonathan. The perfect networking event was unraveling, not because of my actions, but because of the choices they had made long before I arrived. We had barely reached the valet stand when my phone began ringing repeatedly. I silenced it without looking at the caller ID, already knowing who it would be and not ready for that conversation yet. The young valet brought my Tesla around, his eyes widening slightly with recognition as he handed me the keys. Nice car, very impressive, thanks, I replied, tipping him generously. It's amazing what you can afford when you build your own company, instead of relying on family connections and networking politics. Daniel chuckled as he slid into the passenger seat. Feeling a bit vindicated, are we? Just a touch, I admitted, starting the engine with satisfaction. I think I've earned it tonight. Before I could pull away, a familiar figure appeared in my side mirror, moving quickly across the parking area with obvious urgency. My father, his face flushed and his usually perfect appearance disheveled, was practically jogging toward the car. Isabella. Stop right there, young lady, he called out authoritatively. I sighed deeply and rolled down the window, but kept the engine running, ready to leave if necessary. Yes, Dad. He reached the car, breathing heavily from the exertion and clearly agitated. What the hell do you think you're doing? Margaret Pierce is absolutely livid. Emma's engagement celebration is in complete shambles. Your mother is having a panic attack. And it's all because you couldn't handle a simple networking mix-up like a professional adult. A mix-up. I repeated incredulously, my voice rising with controlled anger. They assigned me to the staff break room, Dad. The staff break room. And Emma made it very clear it was deliberate, and based on her perception of my worth. So what if you sit somewhere different, at someone else's networking event? That's basic social etiquette and family support. He replied dismissively. But instead, you had to make it all about you and your wounded pride, destroying important business relationships in the process. Daniel leaned forward protectively. Sir, with all due respect, your daughter is the CEO of a highly successful technology company that Pierce Technologies sought out specifically because of its excellence and innovation. She deserves better treatment than she received tonight. My father's eyes narrowed as he took in Daniel for the first time, his expression becoming hostile. And who exactly are you to tell me how my daughter should be treated or what she deserves? Dad, this is Daniel Kim. He's with me and he's absolutely right. This wasn't about pride or ego, it was about basic professional respect. Something I haven't received from this family in a very long time. Respect. My father's voice rose with indignation. You want to talk about respect when you just canceled a contract with your sister's future mother-in-law? Do you have any idea what you've done to Emma's position in that family? Margaret was going to make her a partner in their next major AI initiative. And there it was, crystal clear. The real concern wasn't about me, or even about tonight's networking event. It was about Emma's business opportunity, her chance to climb higher on the ladder of success that had always been extended to her, while I built my own from scratch without any family support. I'm sorry if my actions impacted Emma's business prospects, I said, not feeling sorry at all. But I need to protect my company's interests and my own professional reputation. Pierce Technologies doesn't get to treat me like a second-class citizen while benefiting from my cutting-edge technology. You need to fix this immediately. My father insisted urgently. Call them back. Tell them it was a misunderstanding, that you were emotional because of the stress of the networking event. I will not, I replied firmly and finally. The decision stands, and if anything, this conversation only confirms I made the right choice for my business and my self-respect. My mother appeared behind my father, her carefully applied makeup now smudged around her eyes, looking genuinely distressed. Isabella, please reconsider. Emma is devastated and humiliated. Can't you see what you're doing to this family's reputation? What I'm doing. I felt a laugh escape, though there was no humor in it whatsoever. I've spent my entire life being overlooked and systematically dismissed by this family. I built a successful, innovative company without any support or encouragement from any of you. And the first time I stand up for myself and my professional worth, I'm the one destroying the family reputation. That's not fair, Isabella. My mother protested weakly. We've always been proud of your technical accomplishments. Really? I challenged directly. Name one time you've bragged about my achievements, the way you constantly broadcast Emma's connections and business relationships. One time you've introduced me to someone important with the same enthusiasm you just showed for Emma's engagement to Jonathan. Her silence was answer enough, confirming what I'd always known but never wanted to acknowledge. The commotion had attracted attention from other departing guests. Several networking attendees had gathered at a respectful distance, watching the family drama unfold with poorly disguised interest. Among them, I spotted my college roommate Sarah, who had witnessed similar family dynamics during our Stanford years, and now gave me a subtle thumbs up from behind my parents' backs. I think we should continue this conversation another time, I suggested diplomatically, acutely aware of our growing audience. When emotions aren't running quite so high, and we can discuss this rationally. There's nothing to discuss, my father replied coldly, his voice cutting. You've made your choice very clear tonight. Emma is family. Margaret Pierce is now family, and you just declared yourself against both of them and everything this family stands for. No, Dad. I declared myself worthy of basic respect and professional courtesy. There's a fundamental difference. Before he could respond, another figure emerged from the main compound. Emma, her face ashen and her perfect networking attire now rumpled and disheveled, approached the car with Margaret Pierce and Jonathan trailing several steps behind, their expressions grim. Easy. What the hell? Emma's voice cracked with emotion and desperation. Margaret is talking about pulling all her consulting business from Mom's firm now. Do you know what that would do to our family's business and reputation? I'm sorry, Emma. That wasn't my intention or goal, but it's the result. she shouted uncharacteristically, completely losing her composure. You couldn't just network where you were assigned for one evening. You had to make some grand statement about your precious tech company and your wounded ego. Daniel tensed beside me, but I placed a calming hand on his arm, silently asking him to let me handle this family confrontation myself. My precious tech company is valued at over 300 million, Emma. It employs 87 people directly, and until 2 hours ago, it was providing essential AI services to Pierce Technologies. I didn't make a grand statement. I made a business decision based on how I was treated and what that revealed about your character. Fix it, Emma demanded desperately. Call whoever you called and tell them it was a mistake, an emotional overreaction. It wasn't a mistake, I replied calmly but firmly. And I'm not going to pretend it was just to salvage your networking opportunity or business prospects. Jonathan pushed past Emma, his perfect networking appearance now considerably disheveled and his usual charm completely gone. This is all your fault, he practically shouted. You've ruined the most important networking event of our careers, because your feelings got hurt over a stupid table assignment. Jonathan, that's enough. Margaret Pierce's authoritative voice cut through her son's emotional outburst. She approached the car with measured, deliberate steps, her expression unreadable but clearly focused. Miss Chen, I think there's been a serious miscommunication tonight that we need to address professionally. There's been no miscommunication, Mrs. Pierce. Your future daughter-in-law made it very clear where she thought I belonged in your business hierarchy. I see. She glanced at Emma, who had the grace to look momentarily ashamed. Nevertheless, I think we should discuss this privately as business professionals. The contract between our companies is significant, and terminating it so abruptly would have serious consequences for both parties' strategic planning. I'm fully aware of the consequences, I replied professionally. My decision stands firm. Margaret's composed facade cracked slightly, revealing genuine concern beneath. You're willing to throw away 45 million and a strategic partnership over networking arrangements. I'm willing to walk away from a business relationship where I'm not respected as an equal partner. The money is secondary to professional integrity. A flash of something that might have been grudging respect crossed Margaret's face, before she schooled her features back to professional neutrality. Well, my legal team will be in touch regarding the termination procedures and transition timeline. I'll have my team ready to facilitate a smooth transition, I assured her professionally. Despite everything that's happened tonight, I don't want your operations to suffer unnecessarily during the changeover. This professional exchange seemed to infuriate Emma even more. Mom, you can't just let her do this to our family. She's trying to ruin us because she's jealous of what Jonathan and I have built together. Margaret turned to her future daughter-in-law with a sharpness I hadn't seen before, her patience clearly exhausted. Emma, you've done quite enough damage for one evening. Go back inside and attend to our remaining guests. We'll discuss your role in this situation later, privately. As Emma stormed off, followed by my parents and Jonathan, Margaret leaned closer to my window for a more private conversation. For what it's worth, she said quietly, her voice genuine for the first time that evening, I had no idea about the networking situation until after your phone call. Had I known, I would have intervened immediately and personally. Thank you for saying that, I replied, appreciating her honesty. But it doesn't change my decision or my assessment of the situation. She nodded once, straightening with understanding. I respect that. And while I disagree with your choice from a business perspective, I can't say I don't admire your principles and professional integrity. She extended her hand formally. Good evening, Miss Chen. I shook her hand briefly before putting the car in drive. Emma remained standing in the driveway, her expression a mixture of anger, disbelief, and dawning realization as we pulled away from the Pierce compound. That was incredibly intense. Daniel commented as we turned onto the main road. Are you okay? How are you feeling? I took a deep breath, feeling the tension and stress of the evening begin to ease from my shoulders for the first time. Honestly, I feel better than I have in years. Like I finally stopped carrying a weight I didn't even realize I was bearing all this time. The weight of seeking their approval and validation. Daniel suggested perceptively. Exactly. I glanced in the rearview mirror at the Pierce estate receding in the distance, the lights growing smaller. I spent so long trying to prove myself to people who were never going to see my value or respect my achievements. Tonight I finally saw it clearly for myself. So what happens now? Daniel asked. Besides finding a place with excellent food and proper seating arrangements, of course. I laughed, a genuine laugh that surprised me with its lightness and freedom. Now we rebuild and expand. Summit Analytics will be absolutely fine without the Pierce contract. We have other clients, other opportunities, and most importantly, I have something I never fully had before. What's that? Complete self-respect. I replied simply, and it turns out that's worth significantly more than $45 million. The first email arrived at 5:47 a.m. Monday morning. By the time I walked into the Summit Analytics office at 7:30, my inbox contained 23 messages from various executives at Pierce Technologies, ranging from apologetic to increasingly desperate. Dr. Rachel Steinberg had sent 4 alone, each more urgent than the last, detailing the chaos my contract cancellation had created in their AI development timeline. Good morning, Alex. I greeted my assistant as I passed her desk. I assume you've seen the email situation developing. Alex nodded, her expression concerned but supportive. It's been non-stop since before I arrived this morning. Steinberg has called 3 times already, and she sounds genuinely stressed about the transition timeline. And Mrs. Pierce herself called 15 minutes ago, asking when you'd be available for an urgent conference call. Schedule a call with Dr. Steinberg for 9:30, I decided. A's for Margaret Pierce. Tell her I'm in strategic planning meetings all day, but I can speak with her tomorrow afternoon at the earliest. Tomorrow. Alex's eyebrows rose with surprise. She seemed to think it was rather urgent and time-sensitive. I'm sure she did. I replied calmly, but I need time to prepare our transition strategy with my team before I discuss anything with her. This is business, not a crisis. I had just settled at my desk when Michael Rodriguez, our chief technology officer, appeared in my doorway, his expression a mixture of concern, curiosity, and barely contained excitement. So, he began, leaning against the door frame with a knowing smile. Want to tell me what happened at your sister's engagement gala that resulted in you canceling our most prestigious contract to date? I gestured for him to close the door and take a seat before briefly recounting the networking incident and the subsequent confrontation. When I finished, Michael was silent for a long moment, processing the implications. I'd like to say I'm shocked by your family's behavior, but after everything you've shared over the years about their dynamics, it unfortunately makes perfect sense, he said finally. The question now is how we move forward strategically. How's our client diversification looking? I asked, refocusing on business implications. Better than I expected, Michael assured me confidently. That presentation we did for Quantum Dynamics last month has them seriously interested. They've been on the fence about implementing our AI system, but with the right incentive package, I think we could secure them within 2 weeks. Make it happen. I authorized immediately. And let's accelerate the timeline on the European expansion we've been planning. Without the Pierce implementation consuming resources, we could redirect our entire development team to international markets. Our strategic discussion was interrupted by Alex buzzing my intercom. Isabella. I have Sandra Martinez from Global Tech Ventures on line 1. She says it's regarding a potential investment opportunity that came up at last night's networking event. I exchanged a surprised but pleased look with Michael. Sandra Martinez, the venture capitalist from the gala who had witnessed the entire confrontation. Want me to step out? Michael offered, starting to rise. No, stay. I want your input on this. I pressed the speaker button. Ms. Martinez, this is Isabella Chen. Miss Chen, thank you for taking my call so promptly. I hope I'm not interrupting your morning. Not at all. What can I do for you? Well, after our brief interaction at the Pierce engagement event, I took the liberty of researching Summit Analytics more thoroughly. I'm quite impressed with your technology platform, but I'm even more impressed with your business principles and leadership style. I maintained a professional tone despite my growing interest. I appreciate that feedback. What specifically interests Global Tech Ventures? Would like to discuss a potential strategic investment in Summit Analytics to fund your international expansion and next generation AI development. Your handling of last night's situation showed exactly the kind of principled leadership and business integrity we look for in our portfolio companies. Michael's eyes widened significantly, and I had to suppress a smile of satisfaction. That's certainly worth exploring, I replied professionally. Would be happy to arrange a comprehensive presentation at your convenience. Excellent. And there's one more thing, Sandra continued. I understand your relationship with Pierce Technologies may be concluding. Global Tech has been considering a partnership with them on several AI initiatives. But after witnessing last night's events, I'm reconsidering whether they align with our corporate values and professional standards. Michael looked like he was trying not to laugh, and I could feel the universe's sense of irony at work. I see. Well, Ms. Martinez, while I can't comment specifically on Pierce's corporate culture, I can assure you that at Summit Analytics, we value professionalism, respect, and integrity in all our business relationships. That was abundantly clear from your handling of a very difficult situation, she replied with obvious approval. I'll have my assistant coordinate with yours for a meeting next week. After ending the call, Michael let out a low whistle of amazement. Well, that was completely unexpected, but incredibly promising. The best part, I said, finally allowing myself to smile, is that it's happening because we stood up for our values. Not despite it. By lunchtime, news of the contract cancellation had spread through the company. While I hadn't shared the personal details, the senior team understood that something significant had occurred to prompt such a drastic business decision. To their credit, no one questioned my judgment, instead focusing entirely on solutions and strategic next steps. My 9:30 call with Dr. Steinberg had been difficult but professionally handled. She was understandably frustrated about losing a system her team had spent months integrating, but her disappointment seemed directed more at the situation than at me personally. For what it's worth, she'd said near the end of our conversation, I had no idea about the networking incident until Margaret told me this morning. It was completely unprofessional and inappropriate treatment. I appreciate you saying that, Rachel. And I want you to know this decision isn't a reflection on your team's excellent work with us. You've been outstanding partners throughout the implementation process. Is there any possibility we could salvage this partnership? Perhaps with different terms or a modified agreement structure? I don't think so, I replied honestly. Some professional boundaries once crossed can't be uncrossed. But I promise we'll do everything possible to ensure a smooth transition to whatever system you choose next. At 20:30, my personal cell phone rang with a number I didn't immediately recognize. Something prompted me to answer rather than let it go to voicemail. Isabella Chen speaking. Isabella, this is Catherine Chen, your aunt, your father's sister. I was momentarily speechless. Aunt Catherine had been estranged from our family for nearly 15 years, following some business disagreement with my father that was never fully explained to Emma and me. Aunt Catherine, this is completely unexpected. How did you get my number? I have my sources, she replied with a hint of amusement in her voice. And I've been keeping tabs on your success from a distance. Your achievements with Summit Analytics are impressive, though not surprising to me. You always were the innovative one. Thank you, I said, still confused by this sudden contact. But why are you calling now after all these years? Because I heard about what happened at Emma's engagement gala, she replied simply. Word travels fast in certain tech circles, and the Pierce family is nothing if not well connected in Silicon Valley. Oh? I said, not sure how to respond appropriately. And I called to tell you I'm proud of you, she said firmly, her voice filled with conviction. Standing up to the Chen family tradition of favoring business politics over genuine innovation, it's about time someone broke that destructive cycle. What do you mean exactly? I asked, intrigued. Catherine sighed, a sound heavy with old wounds and years of frustration. Isabella, why do you think I haven't spoken to your father in 15 years? It's the same story, just a different generation. I built a successful software consulting firm in the early 2000s, when women weren't exactly welcomed in the tech industry with open arms. Your grandfather and father decided my business was a cute hobby project and gave all the family's tech investments entirely to your father's consulting expansion. Even though I had been working in technology and business development every summer and holiday since I was 18. The parallels were unmistakable and painfully familiar. I had no idea about any of this, I admitted. Dad never really explained why you weren't around for family events. Of course he didn't, Catherine replied without any trace of bitterness. It didn't fit the narrative he wanted to maintain. But I want you to know that what you did last night, standing up for yourself and your company's value, means something important. It breaks a pattern that's been toxic in our family for generations. We talked for nearly 90 minutes. Catherine filling in gaps in my understanding of our family history, and sharing her own journey of building a successful business without family support or recognition. By the time we hung up, we had plans to meet for dinner the following week, a reconnection that felt both surprising and somehow inevitable. The remainder of the afternoon brought even more unexpected developments. David Park from Innovation Capital called to discuss not just a potential contract for his firm's AI needs, but the possibility of innovation making a strategic investment in Summit Analytics to fund our international expansion and next-generation research. Your handling of the Pierce situation showed exactly the kind of principled leadership we look for in our investment opportunities, he explained. Sometimes walking away from the wrong partnership is more valuable than securing any amount of funding. By 5:30, I had instructed our legal team to prepare comprehensive termination paperwork for the Pierce contract, while simultaneously exploring 5 new potential client relationships that had emerged directly from connections made at the networking event. The irony was profound and not lost on me. As I was preparing to leave for the day, my phone buzzed with a text from Emma. The first direct contact since our confrontation. Need to talk in person. Just you and me. Tomorrow lunch. I stared at the message for a long moment, weighing my response carefully. Despite everything that had happened, she was still my sister, and while I wasn't seeking reconciliation, I was open to hearing what she had to say if she was genuinely ready for an honest conversation. Okay. 12:30 p.m., Bistro Nouveau on Market Street. Just us. Her reply came immediately, thank you. As I drove home that evening, I reflected on how dramatically differently the day had unfolded than I had anticipated. Instead of damage control and revenue scrambling, we were fielding new opportunities and potentially stronger partnerships with companies that valued integrity. The act of valuing myself had led others to value Summit Analytics more highly as well. Daniel called as I was making dinner, wanting to check in after the eventful day and see how I was processing everything. So, did Pierce Technologies collapse without your AI system yet? He teased gently. Not yet, but Dr. Steinberg sounded pretty close to panic this morning. I admitted with some satisfaction. But the strangest thing happened today. Actually, several remarkable things. I told him about the calls from Sandra Martinez and David Park, the unexpected reconnection with Aunt Catherine, and Emma's request to meet for lunch. It's like by standing up for myself and my professional worth, I accidentally tapped into some alternate universe where people actually respect boundaries and recognize genuine value, I concluded thoughtfully. Or maybe, Daniel suggested gently, this is just what the business world looks like when you stop accepting less than you deserve and start operating from a position of strength. His words stayed with me long after we hung up. Perhaps this wasn't an alternate universe at all. Perhaps it was simply the natural consequence of finally recognizing my own worth and expecting others to do the same. The email from Margaret Pierce arrived just before midnight. A formal request for an urgent meeting to discuss mutually beneficial resolution options and strategic partnership restructuring. I marked it for consideration but didn't respond immediately. Whatever happened next would be entirely on my terms, not hers. For perhaps the first time in my professional life, I felt completely centered in my own value, neither seeking external validation nor fearing disapproval from family or business partners. It was a powerful feeling, this newfound certainty and self-respect, and it had taken a networking event seating chart to finally bring it into sharp focus. 3 weeks after the engagement gala incident, I sat across from Dr. Steinberg at a corner table in Bistro Nouveau, the same restaurant where I'd had my difficult but necessary lunch with Emma. The difference in atmosphere was striking. While my conversation with Emma had been tense and emotional, this meeting with Rachel was relaxed and genuinely collegial. The transition to the alternative AI system is proceeding, but it's not going well at all. Rachel admitted, stirring her coffee with obvious frustration. Between us, Margaret is deeply regretting how everything played out that night. The replacement software is already 5 weeks behind schedule, and the developers can't seem to replicate any of Summit's key predictive features. I'm genuinely sorry to hear that, I replied, meaning it sincerely. Your team worked incredibly hard on the implementation. It's unfortunate they have to start over from scratch. Rachel set down her spoon with purposeful determination. That's actually why I wanted to meet in person, off the record. Margaret is too proud to approach you directly again after your last meeting. But there's growing consensus among the executive team that we made a serious strategic mistake letting Summit Analytics go. The meeting she referred to had occurred 3 weeks after the gala. Margaret Pierce had requested a private discussion at her corporate office, presumably to attempt to salvage the contract. I had agreed to meet, but made it crystal clear I wasn't there to negotiate new terms. Miss Chen, she had begun, her tone carefully calibrated between authority and conciliation. I've reviewed the entire situation thoroughly, and I believe there's substantial room for us to find a mutually beneficial path forward that serves both companies' interests. Mrs. Pierce, I appreciate your time in the meeting, but my decision is final. The contract termination paperwork has already been processed and filed. Perhaps we could discuss a completely new contract then, she suggested with more favorable terms and expanded scope for Summit Analytics. My technical team informs me that replacing your AI system will be considerably more difficult and expensive than initially anticipated. This isn't about contract terms or financial conditions, I had explained patiently. It's about a fundamental lack of respect that was demonstrated not just by your future daughter-in-law but by my sister, and by extension your entire organization's culture. I choose to work with partners who value what Summit brings to the table from day one, not those who see us as servants to be hidden away when convenient. Margaret had been silent for a long moment, processing my words. I understand your position better than you might think, she finally said with unexpected vulnerability. I built Pierce Technologies from a single software patent my late husband left me. For years, I was dismissed by the established players in the tech industry, relegated to back tables at conferences, excluded from major deals because I was seen as just a widow playing with her husband's leftover intellectual property. It wasn't until I had enough leverage and success to demand respect that anything changed in how I was treated. Then you should understand exactly why I can't continue our business relationship, I had replied firmly. You of all people should know that sometimes you have to walk away to maintain your integrity and professional standing. Something shifted in her expression then, a grudging respect replacing her business, like facade. Your sister doesn't deserve you, she said unexpectedly. And for what it's worth, Emma's behavior was inexcusable and reflected poorly on my family's judgment. I've made that abundantly clear to both her and Jonathan. That had been the end of our direct communication until now, with Rachel serving as an unofficial intermediary and messenger. What exactly are you suggesting, Rachel? I asked, returning to the present conversation. A complete reset, she replied earnestly. New contract, new terms, new points of contact within the organization to ensure professionalism. Margaret is willing to issue a formal, written apology for the engagement incident, acknowledging the unprofessional treatment you received from Emma and Jonathan. And what about Emma and Jonathan themselves? I asked pointedly. Rachel's gaze shifted slightly. That's more complicated. From what I understand, they're having some significant marital adjustments. Emma has been completely removed from any involvement in company affairs for the foreseeable future. This aligned with what Emma had shared during our tense lunch meeting 2 weeks prior. After the initial anger and accusations had subsided, she'd finally admitted that the gala disaster had exposed serious foundational issues in her new marriage. Jonathan was the one who changed the networking assignments, she'd confessed, unable to meet my eyes directly. He's always been intimidated by your success. Said it made him look bad if his fiancée's sister was more accomplished than either of us. I knew it was wrong and unprofessional, but I didn't stop him. I was so focused on impressing Margaret and securing my position in their family business. And that's supposed to make it better, I had asked. That you knew it was happening and chose not to intervene. No, She replied quietly, her voice breaking slightly. It makes it worse. I've spent our entire adult lives trying to maintain this image of myself as the successful one, the one carrying on the Chen family business legacy. And when you started doing genuinely well, really excelling, I couldn't handle it emotionally. It was easier to diminish your accomplishments than to admit you had surpassed me. Her honesty had been unexpected and, in its way, more meaningful than any apology could have been. We weren't magically repaired, but it was a genuine starting point, an acknowledgement of the dysfunctional patterns that had shaped our relationship for decades. I need to think about it seriously. I told Rachel now, considering Pierce's proposal carefully. Summit Analytics has secured several significant new contracts in the past month. We're not in the same vulnerable position we were when we first signed with Pierce Technologies. I understand completely. Rachel nodded with genuine respect. But I hope you'll consider it. Despite everything that happened, our technical teams worked exceptionally well together. The innovation potential was remarkable. I promised to give her an answer within the week, and walked her out to the street, where we parted with a handshake that felt more genuine and professional than any interaction I'd had with Pierce Technologies before the engagement incident. Later that evening, Daniel and I sat on my apartment balcony overlooking the San Francisco skyline, sharing a bottle of wine as I recounted the meeting with Rachel and the ongoing business developments. "So, are you seriously considering taking Pierce back as a client?" he asked, refilling our glasses. I swirled the wine thoughtfully, considering all the implications. Honestly, I'm genuinely unsure. On one hand, it would be excellent for Summit Analytics financially and could accelerate our growth timeline. On the other hand, there's something to be said for maintaining the boundaries I've established, regardless of the financial incentives. What does your team think about the possibility? Michael believes we should consider it, but only with significant contractual protections and a substantial increase in our fees to reflect our improved market position. Alex thinks we should pass entirely and focus on the new clients who sought us out specifically because of our integrity and business principles. Daniel nodded thoughtfully, considering the complexity of the situation. And what does Isabella Chen, the woman who finally stopped accepting less than she deserves, think about it? I smiled at his careful framing of the question. She thinks that whatever decision I make needs to come from a place of genuine strength, not insecurity, vindictiveness, or fear of missing opportunities. If we re-engage with Pierce, it should be because it truly serves Summit's best interests strategically, not because I'm seeking validation or afraid to turn down a prestigious client. That sounds like the CEO I've come to admire and respect, Daniel replied, raising his glass in a small toast to my growth. The month following the engagement gala had brought numerous other significant changes as well. My reconnection with Aunt Catherine had blossomed into a genuine mentoring relationship and friendship. Her perspective as another Chen family woman who had fought for recognition in the tech industry was invaluable, and her stories about my father's early years helped me understand his limitations and biases in ways I never had before. More surprisingly, my parents had begun a tentative but genuine process of reflection and potential reconciliation. After the initial shock and anger over the Pierce contract cancellation had subsided, my mother had called, her voice uncharacteristically subdued and introspective. "I've been thinking constantly about what you said at the networking event," she admitted with obvious difficulty. "About us never celebrating your accomplishments the way we always did Emma's business connections." I didn't want to believe it was true, but when I really look back honestly at our family history, you were absolutely right. And I'm deeply sorry. It wasn't an immediate fix for decades of systematic favoritism and gender bias, but it was a meaningful start, an acknowledgement that perhaps they had failed to see me clearly and fairly for a very long time. The most profound changes, however, had occurred within me personally. The engagement incident, as painful as it had been initially, had freed me from the exhausting cycle of seeking approval from people who were determined not to give it. I no longer measured my success against Emma's networking achievements or sought validation from my parents' limited and biased perspective. This newfound clarity and confidence extended far beyond family relationships into all areas of my life. At Summit Analytics, I found myself making strategic decisions with greater confidence and conviction, unencumbered by the second, guessing and self-doubt that had sometimes plagued me before. In my personal life, my relationship with Daniel deepened significantly as I brought a more authentic and self-assured version of myself to our connection. Perhaps most significantly, I had launched a comprehensive mentorship program for women entrepreneurs in the technology industry, specifically those facing family or social obstacles to their professional success. The program, which I named Visible, provided not just business guidance and technical mentoring, but strategies for maintaining professional boundaries and self-worth in environments designed to diminish both. The first cohort of 30 women had already begun meeting weekly, their stories often painfully familiar echoes of my own experiences with family dynamics and professional discrimination. "You know what still amazes me?" I said to Daniel as the city lights began twinkling more brightly below us. "How one moment of standing up for myself created this expanding ripple effect that's still growing and reaching new people." "That's exactly how meaningful change works," he replied thoughtfully. "It rarely happens in the big dramatic ways we imagine from movies. It's usually one person making one principled decision that alters their trajectory just enough to create entirely new patterns and possibilities." As the evening deepened around us, I thought about all the destructive patterns that had been broken in the aftermath of that networking event. Family patterns of favoritism and gender bias, business patterns of accepting disrespect for financial gain, and most importantly, my own internal patterns of accepting less than I deserved professionally and personally. The text message from Emma arrived just as Daniel and I were considering ordering takeout for dinner. "Dad wants to have a family dinner next week. Just the immediate family. He says he has something important to discuss with all of us. Will you come?" I showed the message to Daniel, curious about his perspective. "What do you think I should do?" "I think you've earned the right to set the terms for any family engagement." He replied supportively. "If you want to go, go. If you don't feel ready, don't. Either way, you're approaching it from a position of strength now, not obligation or desperation for approval." Yo1-01-55 I typed my response carefully, considering each word. "I'll be there. But I'm bringing Daniel. He's important to me, and I want him there for support." Emma's reply came quickly. "Of course. Mom and Dad will be glad to get to know him better, and it'll be good for the family dynamic." It wasn't perfect by any means. The scars of decades of family dysfunction wouldn't heal overnight or easily. The Pierce contract situation remained unresolved and complex. Emma and Jonathan were navigating their new marriage, with its revealed fractures and fundamental issues. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt like I was engaging with all of it entirely on my own terms, neither controlled by others' expectations nor defined by their limitations and biases. In the end, the story of the engagement networking disaster and the canceled contract wasn't really about either of those specific incidents. It was about finally recognizing that my value and worth weren't determined by where others placed me, but by where I chose to stand and how I chose to value myself. What about you? Have you ever had to stand up to family members who didn't recognize your professional worth? Or walked away from a lucrative situation where you weren't being valued properly? Share your experience in the comments below. Sometimes the hardest boundaries to set are with the people closest to us. But as I learned through this experience, they can also be the most transformative and empowering. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with your own experiences. Subscribe for more stories about standing in your power and claiming your professional worth. And share this with someone who might need a reminder of their own value today. Thank you for listening, and remember, you deserve a seat at the table, and you have the power to walk away if others don't recognize that fundamental truth. Your worth isn't determined by family approval or financial incentives. It's determined by how you choose to value yourself and the standards you're willing to accept. The journey to self-respect isn't always easy, especially when it involves family relationships and significant financial decisions. But as I discovered that night at the Pierce compound, sometimes the most expensive choice you can make is staying somewhere you're not valued. And sometimes, the most profitable decision is having the courage to walk away. Keep building your own table, and never forget that you deserve to sit at the head of it.